watching Titane in Cannes was really a sort of shock. It was an emotional and intellectual and filmmaker shock, because I think I never saw something like that. And after I saw Titane at Cannes, I watched Raw, and also Raw blew me away. And I watched all your films again the other week, and I would say that now that I have the chance to ask you a lot of questions, I try to sort of figure out what I would also see as a thin red line between your films. And also earlier, I don't know if some of you maybe saw Alpha now in the Künstlerhaus Kino, and Julia mentioned that there is a link between all her films, of course, because you're a filmmaker who also writes her own scripts. And so I would like to start this conversation by asking you about the female characters in your films, because I would be very interested to hear also a little bit about how you grew up as a filmmaker. Like, what were the female characters you used to see on screens, and how did you want to put your landmark on the screen and change maybe also the way female characters are portrayed on screen?
Wow, that's a very, very deep question.
Sorry.
No, that's good, because it makes me think about things that I usually don't think about, and that's the great thing with these talks. You know, when you said about the female characters, that stuck with me, let's say, I immediately thought of something that can seem a little bit weird considering the films that I make, but I also come from somewhere, and I thought about Gilda. You've seen that with Rita Hayworth? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to explain the train of thought. Is that my parents are big cinephiles, and it was, you know, a tradition at home to every night someone would pick a film in the big collection that my mom had of VHS, and we would watch that film. And Gilda definitely is one of my mom's favorite movies ever. She's very specializes in the golden age of Hollywood. She's very savvy with this, way more than I am. And I remember watching this film when I was a kid, and I was in awe at this, this incarnation of the woman. And obviously also how broken she is very much within the film. You could say also this in many ways, in films like, with Laura T. and Jesus, that's also a name, I can't remember. Anyways, my mom had a special attachment to all these, very strong, powerful iconography of the woman in the 50s. So I looked up to this very much in many ways, obviously Marilyn Monroe as well, Audrey Hepburn and all this. And at the same time, it was funny because I was living it through my mom's eyes at the time, but I couldn't connect emotionally to these women. For many reasons, maybe because they were adult characters, maybe because I could not understand their heartbreaks in this film, and how, in this film mainly, you could say that, in Gilda particularly, that she's broken down by the system, very much by the Hollywood system and the whole show business kind of things. You see that as well in Sunset Boulevard, obviously, with Gloria Swanson's character, and also, obviously, Jesus, what's the name in English? In French, it's Miracle de la Vie, Douglas Sirk, Imitation of Life.
Yes.
In Imitation of Life as well, you have very strong female character, completely broken down by life and by a system that crushed them. I think my mom had an attachment to this, these tragedies or these journeys of women. And I was looking up to this. I could understand what they were going through, but I couldn't connect because I was young. And the first time I really connected to a character, I remember it very, very clearly. It was the first time I saw Cria Cuervos by Carlos Saura. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was the same age as Anna Torrent, who plays Anna in the film. So she's the main character of Cria Cuervos, and she plays a young girl whose mom has just died, and her father dies at the beginning of the film. while making love to his lover, and she witnesses that, and then she lives with her two sisters at her aunt's place with her grandmother, who is a little bit senile, and it's all a very woman landscape. There are only women almost in this film. And I could connect with Anna in a way that was completely groundbreaking to me, because I realized at that time that a movie was not just a painting of a landscape in which you would immerse yourself, but it was also feeling seen by a character to the point that you actually kind of like feel the way she feels, or sense that she feels the way you feel. And she became extremely real to me. Mm-hmm. And I remember, in Cria Cuervos, the main track is Jeanette Porque Te Vas. Mm-hmm. And there is this scene where Anna listens to it on her little, a vinyl, apparatus on her own with the big headphones like this. And my parents bought it for me as well. And I had the same apparatus with the same big headphones, and I would do the same and repeatedly listen to this song again. And it's really the first time that I could actually project myself within a character, and that I understood that there was a part of me that was at stake in this character, that it was talking to me directly.
Can I interfere a moment? Do you think, is it also got to do with the filmmaking or with the specific character, or was it the way she was shown?
That's the funny part, is that at the beginning I thought, when I was younger, I thought it was just the character. But then growing up, I realized that I was actually connecting with an older guy. That felt a little bit weird, right? Yeah. And I really definitely think that it was the way she was shown, obviously, and that was his take on childhood that spoke so deeply to me. What I love about this film and about Saura's view on childhood is that it's merciless. He doesn't idealizes it in no way. It's definitely a place where it's very dark, it's very lonely, and at the same time, everything's possible in the sense that he recognizes that children can also have like death impulses, because obviously in Krakow she tries to kill her aunt, she tries to kill everybody basically out of anger and out of like having lost her mom and all this, and we get into her fantasy of killing her aunt, with the strychnine, which is actually like just sugar or whatever, and but you believe that she's going to kill her anyway. And I think definitely that this is a vision of childhood that I share a lot. And I loved, I think at the time, the honesty of it, because people obviously tend to protect children a lot, but I think that when you're a child, you're extremely porous. You actually feel the room extremely easily. Children are very sensitive. They know when they're being lied to, for example. And this guy was not lying. And that's why I loved it so much,
Mm-hmm. And could you also then continue maybe telling us about your own way of showing, like now you talk about childhood, and maybe it's even linked in your films, childhood, but childhood of a female character. Yeah.
It started with Junior. So in Junior, it's the story of a 12-year-old girl who smokes and is very much of a tomboy, dresses like a boy, wishes she could be a boy, only hangs out with boys, to the point where there is a scene where she's actually being very misogynistic with another girl of her classroom who actually is very girly, and she looks down on her for that, until she gets sick. And when she gets sick, she starts shedding her skin like a snake would. And she, in a way, her femininity kind of emerges from this shedding of the skin, And at one point, she starts to see the look on her, around her, especially with her boys' club. She becomes sexualized, She sees the look on her change because her appearance has changed because of this sickness that made her shed her skin and make her a little bit more feminine. And I think that there is something for me that implies a lot of violence on the way women are observed because it's really from the outside. And I think there is an anger, even though this is a comedy, there was already an anger there, something that I wanted to... a ceiling that I wanted to break in a way, especially I think in in the fact that I made her a misogynistic girl at the beginning, the fact that she did not want to connect with other girls, that she was in a way denying her own femininity, you know, which I think is a tragedy really in the film. I really felt bad for her when I was writing this scene. And I think that this anger is something that developed more with Raw in a way more frontal way, about what it is to... I had this urgency to make people feel what it is, the inner journey of a girl and also of a female body as well, with all the impulses and stuff like this. There is something that was strongly, for me, advocating for breaking archetypes and trying to stop, you know, this idea that a woman is supposed to be soft or is supposed to be soft-spoken as far as her impulses are concerned, as far as her appearance is concerned. And I started, which is not the case in Junior yet, in Raw I really started lighting my character in a very raw way, in a very crude way, that was the opposite of glamour. And I really did not intend to make my characters look good or whatever, actually starting not caring at all about this and trying to do the opposite, to make you feel the character more than just look at the character.
But that's an interesting point, because I think some of your characters are really politically incorrect in a way that you don't explain why they are the way they are. They just are brutal, or like in Raw, they want to eat fresh meat, that's it. We don't ever get any sort of circumstances that would justify or rectify or excuse them. And I find that very striking and unusual, especially for female characters. They are villains in your films without us excusing them for being bad characters or evil.
The same goes for Alexia at the beginning of Titane as well, where she's really just like driven by death impulses, really. And clearly she has an issue. I mean, I think she's a psychopath. But in no way, indeed, I try to justify this, because, I mean, why would we accept this from a male character without questioning it in so many films, and American Psycho, you name it, all of them, Norman Bates in Psycho, and stuff like this. So I really felt that there was an injustice, you know, in the genderizing, not only of the body, but of the experience. I mean, I think that indeed there is... Society expects women to justify themselves constantly for feeling things that are actually shared by everyone. And yeah, I think that I don't know how to explain this like so theoretically, because it's really natural to me to go against this. And I must say that I have this tendency to always try to be on the other side of what's expected for my characters.
That's interesting. And you also mentioned that because of showing the body so strongly, or also the injury of body, that is also a way to make us as an audience feel for your characters, more than understanding them in a psychological way, but connecting through the skin, the body.
But again, this for me is not a gender matter at all. I really believe that since the dawn of time and of humanity, body is a taboo, still is a taboo nowadays. Again, we know how for female bodies it's like 10,000, like way more of a taboo than it is. But for the moment, I don't want to genderize this. You know, I come from parents who are doctors, so for me it was the body experience was never genderized in my head. And so it is a very, very big taboo. It's like something that if anything happens to you, whether it's a rash or, I don't know, a wart or whatever, you're going to try to hide it, put makeup on it, put some clothes on it, and you don't like talk about it so much. Most of the time the body is seen as gross. The body experience is seen as gross. I don't know, like the gas, like the fluids and all this. This is something that you do not want to expose in society, in a social environment. And I think this is something that I don't understand at all. I don't understand why it's such a big taboo, considering that it's obviously the experience of the body and the fear of mortality and the vulnerability that goes with is something that we all go through all the time. And I really don't think that anybody is happy with what they see in the mirror every day. Everyone thinks there is something wrong with them, whatever that is, no one is happy about this. And I think this is ground for empathy. This is ground for understanding the other person, because we all go through that. I think there is absolutely no shame into any form of mutation, because I do see the body as being the constant experience of mutation. And on the contrary, I think it really creates an umbilical cord with characters and people that you either don't know anything about or that you don't even condone morally, like it's the case in Titane, for example, at the beginning. The only thing that holds you to this character is the experience of her body. It's because obviously she's like not morally impossible to relate to at the beginning of the film. So for me, the let's say the bet that I made is that for the 31st minute of the film, the audience would accept to connect to her through her experience and the mysterious experience of her own body. So to me, you see, it's a ground for communion very much, and I've always perceived it like this.
So you would probably then not be exactly happy by this label that has been put on your films, feminist body horror. What do you think about that?
I'm not happy with any label, really, whatever they are. I think the main thing with body horror is that it's not exact. It's not a precise word, actually. It's either too precise or too vague. But it absolutely, I think, does not convey the experience that people who have the body as a core of their preoccupation of their films intend you to feel. The body is always the mirror of a society to start with. This is really something about a communal experience that we're talking about. It's something that is existential. It's a matter of life and death when you talk about the body. It's a matter of your relationship to others, as I said before, because of the taboo that it represents and stuff like this. I personally think that Cronenberg, who has always been labeled as the king of body horror, whom he himself is not happy with this label either. He calls it body conflict, which I think, as far as his work is concerned, is extremely right and precise to put it like this. I see his film as a lover of his film. I see it as more of a very much philosophical experience, as a cathartic experience, an emotional one. I mean, I always cry when I watch The Fly. This is, for me, that's one of the most moving films ever made about the fear of losing someone, whether it's physically or psychologically, but the fear of not recognizing someone that you actually love. And it is really heartbreaking. And the monologue about the insect is, for me, like really one of the greatest writing that has ever happened in the history of cinema. So you see, saying that it's body horror implies that it's just there for shock value. Yeah. It's extremely superficial. And it's really just like, oh, you're going to see a gore fest, great. But that's not the point at all, actually. It's not a slasher. It's not just to give you like a sudden jump scare or anything like this. Body horror, as they call it, is actually something that calls to your, the meaning of your own experience, of your own existence.
And the word mutation is, I think you mentioned it, and this is sort of also what it means for you to show a body in your film, or to show how a body is hurt or mutilated.
But for me, it's not even mutation. It does imply a form of tearing apart. Yeah. Whether it's physically or in terms of identity. But it's really, really just the way I see life, and I see this really truthfully. There is no better way for me to define life other than saying that it's a mutation and that it's a constant mutation. If I have to define death, I would say that death is the absence of mutation or the end of mutation. And that's really, to me, how I see things. You see, in that sense, I'm extremely stupidly existentialist. You know, I really believe that our experience and makes us aim for an essence that we will never, and I think thankfully we will never reach. I think that nothing should ever, as far as identity is concerned, I think that nothing should ever be set in stone. I think that life is all about embracing all the possibilities of our being constantly.
Yeah. Identity is helps me to ask my next question, because what you say now also implies that people do have a choice in life. At the same time, I think in your films, the characters very often are tied tightly to their family ties, for example, and their history. They can't sort of easily escape. They are deadly bound to what their family was like, or to a certain nature they inhabit. And then at the same time, there is this idea of emancipation and having a choice. Would you say something about
absolutely.
that?
I think emancipation is like the core of everything I do. It's how I think the arch is of my characters, of my main characters. It's always an ascending arch towards a form of emancipation. So it does imply the fact that they come from the tentacles of an inheritance that comes from the family. It's very much the case in Raw. It's very obvious with this kind of impulse that goes through the female family members, that her sister is also crushed under, and then we learn at the end of the film that her mom is also subject to that. But indeed, it is a matter of choice. I think that in Raw, for example, she makes the active choice when she sees her sister for the first time actually hunt for food, when she creates this car accident and then just feeds off the corpses of the people who died in that car crash. This is the moment where she has this trigger that she does not want to live her life like this, that there is more to her than this, that she doesn't want to yield into this impulse. And that's where the fight within her starts, because it is a fight, and emancipating is always a fight, obviously. And so, it's talking about the family. Someone told me recently that the families in my films are always dysfunctional. And that made me laugh a lot, because I really don't see how a family cannot be dysfunctional. I really think that by essence, being a family is dysfunctional, and it's just that if we address the dysfunctions, that's how we can actually start functioning through them and making it somehow a bond. But it's work, you see, and that's why in my films the question of family is so important. My question is like, what makes a family? I really believe in election for that. I believe in an elected family, whether it's friends, whether it's, strangers that you meet, like in Titane. It's about taming the other, adapting to the other, and accepting that the other is going to mutate, and embracing this mutation. That can happen also, as it's the case in Alpha, within a blood tie, all right? But I think
the sister in Alpha, would you say she has difficulties in accepting the fate that her brother has chosen?
In Alpha,
yeah.
You mean? Oh, not at all. No. I think that the taming actually happens between Alpha and Amin, and her uncle. I think Mom and her brother.
Sorry, I meant the mother. That the mother had difficulties in accepting. Sorry,
in Alpha, yes. Yeah. No, I don't think she has any difficulty. I think at this level, because Mom in Alpha is her brother's mom, basically. And the reason also why she doesn't have a name and she's called Mom in the film is because she's Alpha's mom, Amin's mom, her patient's mom, and everybody who's in need for care's mom. She's the mother with a gigantic M. Her maternal instinct spreads out in the world. It's like a mission for her. So in that sense, she's incredibly fearless. And I don't think that at any point she condones the addiction of her brother, which is not a lifestyle, but clearly a disease. I really would never consider any addiction a lifestyle. To me, he's upset. He's unfortunately affected
not a lifestyle, but I thought he really wants to die.
Oh, that's the other side of the coin with this mission and with this spread out of in a way, too much love. And that's what he says at the end of the film. He tells Alpha, too much love can drive people crazy sometimes. Because when you love someone, when you love humanity altogether, and you have this mission that she has that is so strong-headed, you have a responsibility in love. And the responsibility is that you have to respect the boundaries of the other person's freedom.
Yeah.
And when you love too much, this is where you lose sense of this responsibility. Because for fear, obviously, of losing that person. And he, obviously, in Alpha, begs her many times to let him go. And the reason why he comes back as a trauma, as a ghost, as whatever you want to call it, is because she cannot. And he's stuck in limbo because she will not let him go until her daughter helps her to do so. But that's the reverse side of the coin, right? Is that love comes with a responsibility no matter what.
Yeah, with a responsibility. And in that case of Alpha, I also thought that you also show that negative, suffocating side of a mother's love.
Absolutely. Well, she comes down to actually locking her own daughter in her room for fear for anything like happening to her. And at this point, obviously, Mom has lost all rationality. I present at the beginning of the film her as a doctor, someone who has made an oath, someone whom, as I said, has a mission, who's very rational, who believes in test results and stuff like this. But when we see that it touches her own daughter, all of a sudden, the test results who came back negative, she starts questioning them. And Amin is there to make her face her own contradictions when he says, but I thought the test was negative. And she says, we can't trust the test because there are too many variables, it's too uncertain. And this is the fear talking here. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and also it is interesting for me to compare this with Titane and Raw, because seeing the Titane again and the ending of Titane, I was in tears very much. I find that in that film, love is a way of salvation in the end, but as you said earlier, it's a struggle until they finally arrive. When the man says to Alexia, "Adrien, push," didn't know if I should laugh or cry. Those who don't know, it's a woman giving birth, but she pretended to be a man. And someone tells her to push the baby out, but calls her with the male name. This is incredibly moving, the way love is a salvation in this film, or a comfort.
Yeah, in its most unconditional aspect, because the reason why he calls her Adrien is because obviously she portrayed herself, she presented herself as Adrien to flee the cops, because she had killed so many people before that she had to find a new identity, right? And he adopted Adrien because he thought, or he convinced himself, that it was his dead son coming back. And I think that at one point, obviously, Vincent realizes that it's not really his son who came back, but who cares? Because the bond at this moment, the bond that they have created together, is an absolute bond. They can be father-son, father-daughter. To some level, there is also an ambiguity, because we feel that she has like a desire for him as well. It transforms into a form of almost a reverse Oedipian desire towards him. And indeed, at the end, the matter of her gender it's nothing compared to what they have created together. And I really believe in that. I really believe that one gender doesn't define anybody in any ways. And I think that it's all about accepting the human being that you have in front of you, and that's it. And that's what I call unconditional love. But it's funny that you talk about the fact that indeed it comes out of a struggle, right? Because these two people are this close to killing each other many times, when they meet. And they could have easily killed each other, and it would have been a short movie, and probably maybe a good one, I don't know. But they don't. And you know that this struggle was my struggle, and I realized this afterwards. And actually, that says a lot about Alpha as well, because I had I realized once I had made Titane, obviously I wrote it, so I know the structure that I wrote. I knew that it was a constant movement aiming for this last 15 minutes, of expression of unconditional love. But then when it was over and I was in the end of post-production, I wondered, why did you keep this emotion for the last 15 minutes of your film? And, at the end they say, I love you, right? Mm. And it's the only time in the film where they say to each other, I love you. And I struggled tremendously with this I love you. In the script, I wrote it, I deleted it, I wrote it, deleted it again. And I did 13 drafts of that script, so I deleted it and put it back many times. When we were shooting, I had takes with, takes without, takes with, takes without. And the actors were going crazy about this. Like, no, then in editing room, the same. I would put it to the film, edit it out, edit in, edit it out. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, these are the words that are the most said in every single film, in every single language in the world since the dawn of cinema. Why do I have a problem with this, And I realized that I had a struggle to actually express emotions with words. I truly very much believe in the power of cinema in the sense that it's image and sound and that the emotion should stem from that firstly. And that's why actually my first two features are not very talkative. I very strongly believe in this. And I'm always a little bit afraid that the words are going to diminish the emotion or over-explain it in some way. And obviously, I love you. I mean, you cannot make it more of a cliche than it is, right? So I was struggling with, and then I thought, like, okay, well, if it's a cliche, there is a good reason for that, right? And I left it in the film in the end because I thought that if they say this, what I deemed the cliche at the time, which was probably super judgmental and stupid, it made them transcend their conditions as characters from the film Titane, and they would, through these words, become universal heroes, joining all the cliches of all the universal heroes of all the films that I have loved, right? And that would give them another dimension doing this. Yeah. And then when I came to Alpha, I was like, okay, so it took you so much time with this fucking I love you on Titane, then you're going to try to make a film that says I love you from the beginning to the end, and we'll see how you deal with emotion now.
And what is your experience from that? Already?
Boy, that was hard. That was hard, but funnily enough, that's the film that was the fastest for me to write. Because I took 3 years for both Raw and Titane, and it took me half of the time for Alpha. I wrote it in a year and a half. That was a movie that I had in my head for a long time, even before Titane. But I was postponing it because I thought I needed to be older, wiser, more experienced, and also have more distance because it tackles the mother figure, which is, as we know, so hard to deal with, especially if we're talking about emancipation, right? It's so hard to emancipate from the mother figure because it's really a tearing apart from something that will always be with yourself. So who do you become afterwards? So that was a big question for me. So I thought I needed to be like at least 70 years old to be able to do this. And life happened and stuff like this, and I had to go through Alpha. But apart from this reason, the why I postponed, I think the biggest challenge that Alpha is a lot about the trauma that is generated by what's left unsaid, by is the pain and the grief that was never able to be done, a grief that was denied by society, mostly, obviously, because of the shame that is put on this disease, because it marginalizes people, but also because of the denial, for fear of letting go of someone. And when you tackle the unsaid, obviously your characters have to say things, so I had to deal with words, and I had to deal with emotions through words.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was a big challenge.
When I would like to ask two or maybe one or two questions about your filmmaking, so a little bit more practical questions, but not at all actually. When you start to write a script, a script, yeah, that's the word. Do you how much of it is irrational and how much do you plan in advance the structure of your script?
Good question. So again, I want, as a premise to this answer, I want to say that I really believe that there is no right way to do this. I think that there are as many processes as there are individuals who try to enter this journey. I'm saying this because when I was younger, I used to compare myself a lot to other filmmakers that I knew or that I read about and stuff like this, and you would hear like, this guy like would wake up at 5 a.m. and be at his deck at 7, would take a break just for half an hour at 1, and then he would keep on going. And I was so far away from that. I felt my way was so fucking chaotic. You know, I used to write at night constantly. I would start around like 4 p.m. very slowly, and I would hit my peak around like 11 until like 4 a.m. Everything felt so incredibly chaotic, and I could not like relate to any of these big writers or anything. But then, you know, growing up and getting older, I realized that there is not one process, and actually now I'm an early bird for some miracles. I think it's hormones. Anyways. But there is not one process, and nothing is set in stone again for this. As far as I'm concerned, there is one thing that I'm very, very reluctant to do, is the treatments, or like doing the list of the sequences with summarizes what's happening. I can't do it. I need, when I start the script, I need to go head on and to really like write the scenes right away. But before that, there is a lot of time that happened that is 70% of me staring at the wall or the ceiling for days on and hours on and stuff like this, like a monk a little bit. And it's just like me thinking and reading also. I think it's nice to read or to go to an exhibition or think that to feed yourself with, other works a lot. Then I start taking notes, and I don't start the actual script until I have a clear idea of where my characters are going to end. So it's not a full structure, but I need to know what their journey is, where they start from, when they're going to mutate, how they're going to mutate, and where they're going to end up. That's something I can't start without knowing this. But then afterwards, it's obviously a lot of instinct. As you know, a lot of instinct and a lot of tryouts, really. It's not about writing. You write like a couple of scenes, whatever. You read this, of course, it's shit, and you're going to go back to it. But there is this little intention there that you actually want to cling on, and you keep it, and you try to rephrase everything and reform everything. I think it's all about the intentions, really, more than it is about the planning. And that's how I do it.
So, if I understand correctly, so you do know what the intention of your characters is, in a way also that you know how your story is going to end?
Yes, and also I think I rely a lot on the final emotions that I want to convey. So it's both about where my characters are going to end, but also how I want you to feel at the end of the movie. So this has to be something that is very clear to me. And it's like, striking that note and building up everything towards that note. And in that sense, the way my films are structured from the beginning are really not academic. I struggle a lot with the 3 acts, or the 5 acts, that are very academic. And to me, it's a lot about following the inner journey of my characters. And when I know that let's say when I start to be a little bit confident in my writing, is when I had planned something for my character to do in the next scene, and actually my character takes me somewhere else, because it would not make sense, it would not be coherent for them to do something else, which is something that I hadn't planned at all. So when the character actually starts leading you, and not you leading your character, you know that you're on the. I know that I'm on the good way.
How do you get to know your characters before you write the script? Let's say it like that.
Ooh.
You can also deny questions.
No, that's a good question. It's a super hard one. I think that it's. That's my answer is going to be so freaking cheesy, and I apologize for that. I have to know how I'm going to love them. Even if they're the most unlovable characters, I have to find a way me to love them and to feel empathy for them. And for example, the case of Justine and Alexia was extremely interesting like this, because I knew that there was a point in the film, in Justine's case, in Raw, it's almost in the middle, and it was a big challenge because you are sticking with her from the beginning, thinking, okay, she's just this newbie in this vet school, and you're like, the traditional coming of age kind of thing, and then all of a sudden, bim, she hits a finger, and the big risk with that is that you would see half of the room, if not the entire room, leaving the theater thinking, what the fuck is happening here? Like, there is no way I can relate to this anymore, right? Like, she's completely crazy. And I don't want you to think she's crazy. I want you to understand every step that guided her towards doing this, and to feel for her while she's doing this, and to understand the mutation that she's going through. I need you to keep relating to her no matter what. And that was quite the challenge. The same for Alexia, except that this moment was at the beginning. How do I keep the audience in the room knowing that in no point they can relate to this character who has completely lost touch with humanity, that doesn't have an ounce of humanity in her?
But is it then a specific scene that you think of, or how do you make us understand or stick with Justine, for example? How do you do that?
With Justine, it's very. That's the easiest for me to explain, because it's actually very Hitchcockian, and I didn't invent anything in this. It's just time. When the scene happens, it starts with the bikini shave that turns wrong. I love by the way, this is something that is so comedic to me. I really love the idea that I actually filmed the bikini shave. I mean, you have to understand that this is something that is extremely painful, and that as women we have to go by most of the time to abide by some standards. And I really wanted you to feel like how painful that is in so many ways, and how stupid that is also. And so for me, that is extremely comedic at this moment. And then obviously, so there is this finger who's being, by accident, cut with the scissors because they do it so wrong. And then after that, it's really dissecting all the moment that she goes through that are going to lead her to that. And all of this is extremely logical. And if you explain this to you, you're going to think, hopefully, maybe I would have done the same thing. Because basically, so there is this finger on the floor. Her sister is passed out. There is a dog in the room. The dog goes straight for the finger, obviously. So what you do is your sister's finger, you have to preserve the finger in order for it to be sewn back on the hand, right? Everyone would do that. So she pushes the dog away. She takes the finger. What do? You look for ice. That's what we would all do, right? Except that we are in a uni dorm, and we know that beside like a stale bottle of vodka, there is no ice in the fridge, and there is nothing in the fridge, actually. So there is no ice to preserve it. Okay, what do? Well, you just keep it and you wait for help. You keep it in your hand, you wait for help, and you hope for the best, right? But it's bloody. And it starts leaking down your wrist. Personally, if I'm holding, like, I don't know, let's say an orange that is like leaking, if the juice of the orange goes on my wrist, my first instinct is to go like this. So that's her instinct. She feels it dripping and she goes, oh, fuck. And then she has the first taste. And knowing her family history and knowing what happened also when she first had this, this rabbit kidney during the hazing, we know that that's a reflex that she should normally never have done, because that's her doom at this moment. And then from the moment she licks it, it's just one shot waiting for it to happen. And that shot is very long. I just stay with her and I just let you understand what's going on within her at this moment, and then bim, she hits it.
That's interesting.
It's really Hitchcockian.
Okay, I should read more Hitchcock and talk to you more. And
it's the build-up,
And in Titane, In Titane, you also said that it is about like connecting to Alexia's body in the first 30 minutes.
Well, there is one thing, is that her body from the get-go is objectified.
Mm-hmm.
So from the get-go, I think that no matter who she is, when you see her in this very sleazy car show with women who are have makeup on and, you know, costumes that look like the cars that are tuned, putting them at the same level because they are in the same bright colors, you know, everything is so shiny and all this, there is a clear leveling of a woman equal a car and the car equal a woman, hence a woman is an object as well. So, and you see the looks of the guys when she goes through, we are behind her with the gimbal and we follow her and we see the guys and we see that all this show is actually made for guys to enjoy the cars as much as they enjoy the women. So through this objectification that she takes over, by the way, at the end, because she looks straight into the camera like a big fuck off, you know, to all this, like I'm reclaiming my narrative back. But because she's being objectified, I think that you relate to her just because of that. To start with, you relate to this body who is seen as an object right away. And the second thing is that as much of a psycho as she is at the beginning of the film, the first murder that we witness actually is a reaction to a sexual assault. Mm-hmm. She's been stalked by this guy. This guy completely crosses the boundary when he asks for an autograph, prevents her from closing the window and forces her to kiss him very forcefully. But the only thing is that he fucked up with the wrong person. Mm-hmm. And he could not know that, but this is an assault. Yeah. So that's also how, in a way, I take you on her side and, you know, kind of like put a distance between the moral judgment, you know, and you.
Okay. Thank you for this interesting answers. I have to look. Yeah. Now I would like to also open up the discussion for questions from the audience. Please maybe just raise your hand or give us a sign if you would like to ask a question to Julia.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I was actually wondering, how do you as an artist deal with the issue, if we want to call it that, the issue of intentionality, and in general what the audiences or anybody who receives your art, how they take it? How do you deal with that difference, that rather, if we want to call it, a little bit of an abyss that sometimes can be between the interpretation of a work and what we want to say? Are you happy with this abysm, or do you do everything in your power to shorten it as much as you can?
Oh no, my God, no. I mean, I really think that art is, no matter what the medium, art is there to create a dialogue. So I think that I'm not there to impose a message. I'm not there to give you answers. I'm just here to raise questions. That's what I want to do. My reason of being in this world is actually to try to communicate with the world like this. So I think that I will never try to impose an interpretation on you. I have interpretations, and also you know that I use a lot of symbols in what I do in many ways. I have a very close bond to psychoanalysis. I've been in psychoanalysis for 25 years. So really for me the symbol has become really a way of expression. So I have my own interpretations of some things that are symbolic in my film. For example, in Alpha, the Red Wind, I could definitely share with you this interpretation. However, it does not superate your interpretation of that, thankfully, because I think that when you make a film, and also when you receive it, I think there is this thing that I hope it makes us feel a little bit less lonely. And I hope that in this dialogue, we are both feeling seen. And I think that you should apprehend a work of art through the prism of your own life, of your own sensitivity, of your own experience. And I think it would be extremely reductive of the point of all this to actually force any form of message or explanation on you. What I want you to do, what I hope that you do while you watch it, is just to feel. I want to make you feel something. I want to shake you to your core. I want you to move you, and also I want you to catharsize things that you would not be able to purge outside of this temple, and that's it. So I hope it answers your question. Cool, thanks.
Who else would like to ask a question?
Hello.
Hi.
I hope this question was not asked before. My question is, what inspires you to do exactly this genre?
What inspires me to do what?
What inspires you to do exactly that genre?
Okay. That's a broad question, because my first reaction, if it's honest, I'm going to tell you I don't know. I'm going to tell you thankfully there is something natural and instinctive, and as I say, it's I think anyone who creates anything attempts to actually reach out. It becomes a way of life. It's just your way of being in this world is to express yourself and to aim at being as sincere and honest as possible in that way. So my first response would be, why do I express myself like this? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to give you like a little story. I hope it's not too long, but that was a nice surprise to me. I think for my 40th birthday, it was 2 years ago, my mom found, a little story, a little essay that I had to write when I was in school when I was 7. And so it was very young. And she gave it to me. She was like, look what I found. And I read this very short thing, and it was actually extremely creepy. And I couldn't believe it, because I thought, fuck, it was already there. I mean, very shortly, the story is about me. I'm in my apartment on my own. The doorbell rings. I open the door. It's my grandmother. I let her come in. She asks for a glass of water. I go get the glass of water. I come back to her. Bim, she takes off her mask, and it's not my grandmother. End of the story. I was really shocked to read that. So how can I explain that at 7 I came up with something like this? I have no idea. What I can tell you is that talking about inspirations is almost reductive, because for me, when you say inspire, I hear references. I don't like this word so much, because to me a reference is kind of a quote. It happens, I do quote sometimes, and even one could like say that the Edgar Poe poem in my film in Alpha, The Dream Within a Dream, it is a quote, definitely. So I don't have anything against this, but what you're talking about, I think it's something that is much deeper. I'd rather talk about influences. Because influences are not, a tool that you use in a specific work, because you use it for a specific purpose. An influence is the whole body of work. It's an entire being that probably you have never met, or who's already dead, or that you didn't get the chance to meet. Sometimes you do, and that's fortunate. But it's someone whom, through their work, gave you an education since a very long time, and with whom you have grown. It's almost like a parental education, almost, except that you elected that person. You came to this work, and you came back to the work, and you tried to dig in, trying to understand why this work was calling you, why this work was making you feel seen, as I said before. These are influences, and these influences, they are everywhere. They are part of my DNA now. Obviously, we talk about Cronenberg, we can talk about Pasolini very much as well. We can talk about Francis Bacon, and incidentally, Pasolini was also obsessed with Francis Bacon. So, things are always interconnected, and I love that. We can talk about Robert Mapplethorpe for me as well, Frida Kahlo very much, Louise Bourgeois. All these people gave me an education and made me the person that I am today. So it's way, way, way deeper than this, you see.
Would you like to choose whose question?
Oh, no, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare.
Then I'll choose sort of
Yes.
random
Go ahead.
way. Please, would you, the lady in the second row?
I just want to say, I think I could listen to you for ages, and I just watch so many interviews, and it's just incredible how where you drain. I don't know, just the way that you explain things. I would say. I just want to ask, do you feel concerning the label? Do you feel that will influence the body horror feminist? That will influence your next work, or
Alors, can you just? I think I didn't hear the beginning of your question.
So my question is, because you said you're not good with labels.
Okay, yeah.
And with this feminist body horror,
Oh, yeah.
do you feel that's gonna influence, or that maybe had an influence that you are not maybe gonna go in that direction? Maybe you're gonna, I don't know.
Okay, to start with, I talked about the label of body horror before, right? So you know how I feel about that and how reductive I think that is. I'm not going to go back on that.
I know.
I just want to say that I really don't think that feminism is a label. I think feminism is a way of life. It's a way of thinking life. I was extremely lucky in my life to have two parents who are incredibly feminist, who have always brought me up to tell me that I was the equal of any person in this world, and I had the same rights as everybody else, and that I could claim my own life as anybody else. And that's obviously, talking about an education, I was extremely, extremely lucky to have been brought up like this. My parents are both doctors, and they value human life very much. They are extremely humane in many ways, and so my mom is a gynecologist, and when I was a teenager, I always thought it was a weird choice of a specialty. It really, seriously, it's really I really wondered. And one time I asked her the question, I was like, why did you pick that specialty? That's a little bit, strange. And she very honestly to me, she was like, but to help women. And that's all she wanted to do. She wanted to help women because she is very conscious of how hard the female experience can be, just physically to start with, that what is at stake within a female body. We know obviously about the pain that we experience all the time with a female body, that is only about the female body every month. We know also how heavy the standards that the female bodies are confronted to every day is. And she just told me, listen, being a woman is hard, and I just want to help women, and that's it. So you see, to me, using this as a label or a marketing stunt would be such a blasphemy, and so that would make me so sad and hard. It's a heartbreak for me. So this is not going to change. That's for sure. And however, talking about the body horror part, or let's say my interest in bodies, I'd rather say this, or my I really believe that there is so much to be said about humanity through the body experience. And I think that I don't want to say forever, because I don't believe anything is set in stone. And if at one point I do a shitty comedy, don't be mad at me. I'm a human being. I evolve like everyone else, and maybe at this moment I will want to do a shitty comedy, But yeah, for the moment I'm still there.
Absolutely, totally agree with you. And I just watching your movies. I never thought I would never label them feminist body, but I was thinking maybe because of the critics and stuff that would make some impact on you. But thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you.
Who else would like to ask a question? Maybe this person
with the moustache.
They both have moustache.
I didn't see the other one.
First of all, I want to say thank you for the alpha. It was amazing. It was incredible.
Thank you so much.
And you were mentioning earlier that you had some difficulty at first when you were starting filmmaking, just comparing yourself to others and stuff. And if you could give yourself advice when you were back on that stage, what advice would you give yourself to find your cinematic language easier?
Good question. Well, first, don't compare yourself to others, obviously. Okay, that's a shitty answer, probably. I don't know. I don't think there is any easy way to do it. And honestly, I don't think I would want to make it easier on me. I think that the struggle is part of it. You know, the struggle is part of what pushes you forward. It's not supposed to be easy at all. I mean, you expose yourself in so many ways. There will always be this vertigo. There will always be this fear of not being understood when all that you crave for is not to be understood, but again, to communicate, you know, and to exchange with people and to feel a little bit less alone, probably, and hopefully people feel the same. And sometimes it just doesn't happen, you know, and it's like this. I think that the one thing that that is a way for me to be nicer to myself nowadays is that I realize that as long as you gave your all to your film, that you gave 200% of yourself, that you don't have any regrets, that you yielded on something because, it was either too complicated or because there were too many obstacles in your way and stuff like this. As long as you keep your battle, as long as you don't betray yourself, then you're ready to take in any form of criticism, and you're fine. I think that's what I would say.
Thank you so much.
And the other moustache?
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you. Thank you for being in Vienna and doing this talk.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of your movies, and I love the music in your movies. I think Jim Williams does an amazing job, and I want to know how your process with working with him is. And I also love the music scenes, like the amazing Future Island scenes in Titane, and now the Nick Cave scene in Alpha. And I want to know, how do these scenes come to your mind? How do you have the music in mind, or do you have the scene in mind and think about fitting music? How do these scenes get to you?
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So for the first half of your question, the work with Jim. So Jim has been the composer of all my films since Raw, so it's the third one that we've done together. He has become part of my family 100%. And I don't even say this just in a cheesy way, like, oh, I love him so much. I do love him so much. But when I say family, and the same applies to Ruben Impens, who's my DP, with whom I've done all my features as well, and also the entire, like, my sound designer, my mixer and stuff. When I say family, is that they are part of my signature. You know, they are part of me growing up into my own style. It's not just me, it's the dialogue that I have with all these artists that make this specific look or this specific signature what it is. Obviously, I make the choices, I give the directions, I orient them, of course, but all this is a fruit. It's the result of endless discussions and all our sensitivities together. That's what I call family in this realm. Jim and I, we have, like, I think that when you listen to the score of these three features, there is definitely a very recognizable touch. We both come from rock. We both, like, he actually had a rock band for a very long time, and he teaches the history of rock and roll in the University of Brighton. I mean, that's part of his, I don't know of his classes, basically. And so we have this in common, like, of new wave. We love synth. We love using synthesizers very much, and we love confronting actual orchestras or actual pieces of real instruments with synthesizers very much. We like this hybridity in the music. We are both also, I think, former goth. He was way ahead of time because he's a little bit older than me. But we have this as well into us. So there is the melancholy that is attached to that, the kind of very emotional feel, and also like the love for the organ, the instrument. We love organ. We have used organs in all of my films. And this time in Alpha, I tried to refrain ourselves from overindulging into the organs, because the organs that we use usually, we use them to give a sense of verticality to the music, referring to something that is sacred without being religious, but that kind of like connects to the humans of my film to something beyond them. And in Alpha, I did not want this. In Alpha, I told him from the get-go that I wanted something that was actually quite Baroque. My main reference was Lully. And you know that Baroque, it's a music that is actually quite rigid. It's, that Lully used to have this he's famous for his baton, because he was like directing by really like, striking the baton on the floor like this. He actually died from that. Can you believe it? No, because one day he completely poked his foot with the baton, and he died of gangrene. That's insane. I mean, this story is just priceless. I'm sorry for him, but it's a little bit funny. Yeah. And so that was like a big reference, and how we mixed this with our rock and roll basis, obviously, as well. But the reason why I wanted Baroque is because Alpha, contrarily to Titane, and also in a way contrarily to Raw, the way I portray humanity here is actually extremely... it's harsher because it doesn't have an exit. And I think that is the closest I got since the beginning of my career to actually trying to depict the pathetic aspect of our condition as humans, the conscious that we're going to die eventually, and that there is no exit to this condition. Because you see, in Raw, I saw humanity as a transcendence to our animal condition. So it was kind of like, again, something vertical, something to reach out for, like a grail. In Titane, it's actually a movement of descending and ascending again, because I portray humanity that is decaying and on the verge of disappearing within my two characters, but there is a solution to it through transhumanism, through the metal, and through this baby, the spine of the baby, which promises at the end of the film a humanity that is stronger because it's mutant. So I wanted the music to portray that, this rigidity, this kind of like a feeling that we are stuck in one room, and that there is nothing beyond this. And it's actually why I directed him in that way. To finish, because that's already a long answer, on the songs are already written in the script. I'm never going to change them. Once they're in the script, they will be in the film, which is a big problem for my musical supervisor, because I always use big hits and I use them entirely, which is very expensive. So every time he reads the script and he goes, "Oh fuck, I have to negotiate that." I'm like, "Yeah, sorry." I'm never gonna manage to. You manage every time, I know you're gonna be able to do it, and he does indeed manage every time. I don't know how he does it. Don't ask me, because that's not my job. But he manages. And it's true that the reason why I choose big hits, it's because we all have, feelings linked to this big hit. I was going to say Christopher Nolan, not at all. Xavier Dolan does it very well. He always does these crazy needle drops that he really uses in a very extensive way in moments that are really extremely emotional. And I always have this memory of Mommy, when he's on his skateboard and Wonderwall is playing full blast in the theater on it. And I think I love this gesture. It's so generous, because obviously Wonderwall, we've all listened to it when we were teenagers. So we can both completely relate to the character, and at the same time it moves like such nostalgia in us that it really reinforces the emotional moment. And I do like to use needle drops the same way, you see. And the last thing that I want to say, I'm sorry because my answers are very long, is that the reason why I choose certain songs and that why they're in the script is the same way that I use the Edgar Allan Poe poem. Is I choose them for their lyrics, because usually the lyrics of this song, they talk for my characters. And I'm going to talk about Let It Happen, which is the most controversial needle drop that there is in Alpha, because one, it's not of the period to start with, and also because it's so recent that, you know, people have a hard time linking it to the time period of my film. And I totally get that. And also because it's a very like energetic song at the moment that is actually very, very dark and heavy. But Let It Happen. I mean, I put that song there because it's the threshold of the moment where all the timelines are going to fuse, are going to morph into one big moment where she's going to relieve the trauma. And she knows she has to relieve the trauma to put an end to it. So freaking let it happen, you know, of course. Thank you.
Maybe here, the person with the cap and the glasses.
Hi.
Hi.
Huge fan, also pretty nervous.
It's all right. We're all nervous here.
I wanted to ask, in every movie prior to Alpha, we've always got a character played by the same actress. The character is always called Justine. I wanted to ask if there's like a deep connection between all of your films. Like, is this Justine trilogy with Titane, Grave, and Junior? And I wanted to also ask, why isn't there a character called Justine in Alpha? Is there also a deep reason behind this? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know if it's deep, but there are reasons. Yes. The first thing is that it's not only Justine, but Adrien has been there from the beginning as well, from Junior actually as well. Alexia has been there from the beginning from Junior as well. She's the older sister, also in Junior, and she's been in Raw. She's been in Titane as well. And I think that the first reason, again, is the same answer that I give, because there are things that are instinctive. I just feel comfortable in these names. But if I start trying to understand why I feel comfortable in these names, is because I like the idea that, as I said at the beginning, to me, filmmaking is a continuous movement. You know, it's something that I don't think that you stop a page of your life to start another one every time. I think it's a constant morphing, a constant mutation of digging deeper within your own obsessions, your own fear, your own emotions that are always the same, but that you actually try to see in a different angle every time. You know what I mean? So to me, it's a very continuous movement. And so I like to think that these characters and this comfort that these names bring me are kind of like different possibilities of the same characters if we think it in a multidimensional way, you know? So it's like the Justine that you've seen in this 1, 2, 3 films, 4, because I did a TV movie a long time ago and Justine was in there too. But all of them are different forms of Justine in different dimensions to me, and what she could be in this certain circumstance. And the same for Alexia, the same for Adrien, what they could be. You know, the same way that I really believe that life is all about embracing all the possibilities of your being. At every time, I really believe that it's the case for my characters as well. And you said that, so indeed there is no Justine in Alpha. The reason why there is no Justine in Alpha is actually it's going to sound like a little bit of a brain fog, but that's how I feel it. Is that I think in my head that Alpha, in the chronological order of my 3 features, could come before Raw, and Alpha is the name you would give to a prototype, you know. And in some ways, again, that's not an agenda. I never think about these things when I write or when I direct or when I'm in post-production. It's only retrospective thought when I talk with an audience like you, which is great because it makes me reflect also upon what I've done, and that's extremely stimulating intellectually. But I realized that this could be the prototype of Justine, that all the traumas that are explored in Alpha could also like explain a little bit more about Raw or Titan in many ways in other dimensions. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I feel it. Thank you.
Maybe very close. On the side. Maybe let's continue here, one person, then we go to the other side.
Hi. So this question might sound a bit sacrilegious, but if there was the possibility for you to direct one movie that already exists and you could put your own spin on it, what movie would it be? And maybe that's a bit egregious, but how would you put your spin on it?
Oh, wow. Oh my God, okay. That's a very hard one. It's not sacrilegious at all. I mean, it's an interesting question. Right now I'm really brain farting, sorry. And what would be my take on it? Oh man, I'm leaving so much on the side, it's horrible. I don't know why, don't ask me why. My first instinct goes to Rebecca by Hitchcock. Because obviously we don't see Rebecca throughout the film. It's not that I want to relive her in no ways. I think it's perfect as it is. It's perfect the fact that we don't see her. I love the fact that we only get to know her through the lies and also the active research of the main character of the new wife to understand who she was. I think my spin on it would be more on the part of the new Mrs. What's the name of the new wife? Yes, I think that I would make her leave that asshole of her husband. Yeah, that movie is actually incredibly misogynistic. Yeah, I still absolutely. I want something to happen. Yeah, a sorority with the horrible Mrs. Danvers. That would be my spin on it. Definitely, I think I would kill that male character. I don't know if it was a good answer or not, but that's the only one about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we said this person here.
I wanted to ask, so you have spoken a lot about the characters that you, at the beginning, you know where the characters are and then how they mutate and then where they will be at the end. And I just wanted to ask, how do you find in general the topic you want to shoot a movie about? In the genre of horror, for example, the topic.
It's never a topic. What I mean by that is that I don't think, and Jessica, you tell me if you think otherwise, because I would be curious to know what you think about that, but I think it's quite a myth, the idea that you get like, oh, I have one idea and you go straight for it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not something that goes, oh, that's a good topic, I'm going to go for it and make a movie out of it. Okay. I really think that it's a lot of desires within you. It can be just an image that pops in your head, a scene that you witness, in between two people,
like one thought, like maybe.
It's really connecting the dots in between all these various desires. It's also the desire to challenge you in certain ways. That's what I was saying about using words, to express emotion and stuff like this earlier. But it's also really like, oh, I've witnessed this scene and it made me feel kind of queasy, but I want to dig deeper into this emotion. I have this very striking image in my head that is quite uncanny, and I want to know what I can do with this. And then somehow, with time, you connect the dots between all these desires, and you try to make it a cohesive design, in your mind. And that's, the film, what it's gonna look like if you connect all this, and if you start making sense. And in the end, it always makes sense, because we are finite people. So if everything coexists within you at a certain moment in your life, it's for a good reason. But you have to make the work of connecting the dots.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you agree with this,
I
Jessica?
totally do. I sometimes describe it also as a snowball. You roll it in the snow and it gets bigger and bigger.
That's true.
It's as if one idea drags the other one behind her.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
That was the question from the other room, the so-called other room. There's a secret room that nobody knows about. It's very hidden, very dangerous, but people come over from that other room and then they disappear again. Would you like to ask a question? Lady with the white pullover.
Yes, thank you. So I'm not sure how I'm trying to formulate the question correctly. So I'm trying that the whole time. So I was wondering, how do you not get compromised in a way of writing and then also directing? Because in one way I think you're really outside of societal norms, and for me watching your film Titane the first time and then watching your other films also, it really felt when you were describing what was missing when you grew up being a woman, that was your film for me, and that was really finding myself in that. And so I was wondering how you do that in writing, and then also in directing. You said now that you have a crew you work with all the time, as it seemed to be. So is that finding your allies and then just sticking with them? Then also how do you find money and
Well, that's really broad.
to support you in these agendas and not because there's a fucking huge pressure.
Okay, I'm gonna try because there are a lot of questions within your question. I just want to be clear on what you mean by how do I manage not to be compromised? Do you mean not compromising my goal for a film, my intentions, and as far as the obstacles are concerned? That's what you mean?
In this is the second part of the question, yes, and the first.
I'm gonna stick to that for a moment, if you wish.
Thank you.
Again, Jessica, I would be very happy to hear your thoughts about that. Again, you're trying to formulate your question. I'm going to try to precisely formulate my answer. Because the easiest answer would be no fucking way. No fucking way I get compromised. I think that's honestly, and again, that's super lyrical or cheesy or whatever, but I think there is a matter of life and death. It sounds super superficial because it's not making an open heart surgery. I don't have anyone's life in between my hands. And my parents are doctors, so I really say this, I don't say this lightly. I'm very aware of that. But for me, it's a matter of life and death. If I don't go through my process, and if I give up on myself, but I think honestly that's worth for anything in life in general and for anybody, but just giving up on yourself is not a good feeling. And that's how you don't get compromised.
Yeah, but the thing is there's so many people coming to you and trying to talk about you with your vision, telling you what they think, how they want to give you money, how they want to create their characters and stuff like that. So that was the first.
I create the characters. Yeah. That's the only thing I can. That's my answer if people say that. I mean, I direct the film, I write the film. This is my film, and fortunately, I live in a country where this matters. It still matters for the moment, and we have to fight for it to keep on mattering. Because that's how art is made, and that's how you don't get eaten alive by the idea that entertainment is art. Because these are two very different things. They don't hit you the same way, and they don't feel you the same way. Bear with me, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I go to Disneyland regularly. I love being entertained. No problem with that. It's just that it's not the same experience, and wanting to be distracted is one thing, and you need this sometimes, and I understand that especially nowadays one might want to be distracted a little bit more, and I get this, but I think that being confronted to again the physicality of our condition here, the meaning of our condition here, in the most existential way possible, is also not only a need, but also one of the pillars of our civilization. I mean, if you take out art out of our civilization, you get no communication whatsoever. You don't get a social fabric at all. Art is building social fabric, right? So it's two very different things. And I think, as you say, how don't you get compromised? Then I think you have to be very clear on the fact that these two things are extremely different experiences, and that they both have to coexist. And you have to know where you stand as far as yourself as a filmmaker in this process. You tell me if you feel it's a bit...
No, I totally agree to what you say, and maybe also as a practical comment, I think it also helps, like what you described earlier, to have your film family, like to have the people you work with, because in a way they also support your idea. So in the end, it's good not to be alone, and to have people to sort of also back up your idea and sort of help you stay on the track.
Yeah, I agree with that, absolutely. She answered the second part of your question brilliantly, so I'm not going to add anything to it.
Two last questions. There are the two last questions.
It better be good, huh?
Yeah, I hope so. So my question would be like, where does your body horror originate from? Do you see it as like the perinatal trauma of being separated from the womb?
Say that again, sorry.
Is it about the perinatal trauma of being separated from the womb? I made some, and like for Nietzsche, like the spirit is always just a plaything of the body. And you talked about emancipation also, and for Freud, the hysteric subject is the emancipatory subject. But in your films, like the main characters aren't hysteric; they want to escape the hysteria imposed upon them by society and stuff. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, to start with, I'm not sure I understood anything what you just said, but I'm still going to try to answer it. I'm being very honest. I want to start by saying that Freud was not the biggest feminist on the planet, was he?
I think he was the first feminist.
And Nietzsche neither.
I think Freud was the first feminist.
What?
Freud was the first feminist, in my opinion.
Let me allow me to strongly disagree with this. I mean, he certainly did a lot. He invented psychoanalysis, and as a psychoanalyzed person, I can only thank him for that. But that doesn't make him a feminist by any ways. But in any case, let's agree to disagree on that one. What you were saying about... I'm not even sure what you were saying, sorry.
Okay, so is your body horror just like a representation of being separated from the womb and living life itself, basically?
Okay, so again, I don't like the label body horror. I'm not going to go back on that. Let's leave the body horror aspect aside from that. I think that the thing with emancipation is obviously at the core of every film that I've made, but as you've seen in Alpha, it's about emancipation from the mother figure, which is different than from my first two features, which was a question of emancipating from the paternal figure. And I think that it's two very different experiences. When you emancipate, or you try, because it's not like it's a given or anything or granted, it's extremely hard. When you try to emancipate from the father figure, you actually try to tear away from your need for external validation. You try to not care anymore about being validated by an outside look. And God knows that's already very hard, because actually what you would see most of the time is that this need for external validation is very often transferred onto not only the father figure, but onto the entire society. That's where like you kind of like risk having codependent tendencies very much. So this is already a very hard job to do. But it is doable, because once you've emancipated from this external look, you can actually find your own contours and have a sense of self, okay? Of yourself, your own self. Emancipating from the mother figure is a whole other deal, because it means that you have to try, or you think you do, to tear away from the symbiotic wound. I said wound, and again, that is an amazing mishap, because it says a lot, and psychoanalytically speaking, I think I will talk about it to my shrink. I want to say womb, and I said wound. It's from the symbiotic bond, and this bond obviously does not stop after you're born. It's a bond that you will always bear with you through your entire life. Freud, as you said you have to kill the father. You can kill the father, but he never said you have to kill the mother. And he never said that because it's impossible. If you kill the mother, you kill a part of yourself. And that makes it extremely hard to accept that, because it means that how do you find your own self outside of this relationship? How do you break with this relationship, if it's even possible? And I don't have an answer for that, certainly not. But who are you after you have broken away from it? Because not only do you have to find yourself or whatever, that's not this. You have to completely reinvent your state of being in the world. To that, I don't have an answer personally, but I can tell you what I found for my character through her own art. For me, the way that she can actually stand alone at the end of the film, being her own self, is because while helping her mom to accept that the trauma that she has been through is in the past, and that she's allowed to grieve it, and that she has to accept it, she gives her mom her life back. And in that way, psychoanalytically speaking, she becomes her mom's mother. And that's how she can actually look at her mom, not like the mother that we were talking about at the beginning of the talk, but just as an individual, as a person who comes with her own weaknesses, her own failures, her own hurt, her own wound, who tried the best as she could with what she had, like any of us. And that's how she can stand as her own self at the end of the film. I don't know if that answers your question, and I'm pretty sure that I did my best. Last one?
Last question.
Okay, so I hope this doesn't come off as too confrontational, maybe a little bit confrontational.
I've seen it all, go ahead.
Because earlier you made this very strong distinction between art and entertainment. And if entertainment isn't art, then what is art?
Oh, wow, that's not confrontational. Like, do you have 15 days in front of you?
I do, everyone else, I'm not sure.
No, it's not confrontational. I understand what you're saying. Okay, I'm going to give you something. I'm going to tell you what it's not. I'm going to try like this first, okay? I don't think that art is instant gratification. That's the first thing. I don't think art is supposed to bring you any form of answers whatsoever. As I said, I think like Google can give you some answers, and now AI probably, I don't know, I don't use it, I'm an old fart, but certainly not art. I think art is only here to raise more and more questions, as I said, start a dialogue, but also, you know, help you question yourself in many ways in places that you were actually resistant to go to. Wondering why you feel called by a certain piece of art that you don't understand necessarily on the first time. And by the way, I really certainly do not think that art should be taking you by the hand. That's absolutely not the purpose. And that goes with the fact that it's not instant gratification. I think that I'm going to give you an example, by the way. In my pantheon of the films that I love the most, or the paintings that I love the most, or the poems that I love the most in this world that I have stuck with me throughout my entire life since I discovered them, I did not understand fully any of them on the first time. Some of them completely left me off track. I could not understand the entry point. And yet I felt compelled to go back to it. That's what I mean when I say it calls you. It calls you sometimes even against your own will, you know. But there is this image that stuck to you, or this emotion that it made you feel at this moment. You don't know why, but you've got to go back to it to understand what it means to you. Not what it means in general and what it means to the artist, to answer your question that you asked me earlier. Just what it means to you. I think art is supposed to reveal things within you that you have no idea are there, or you don't know why they're there. And in that sense, again, it's an existential experience. It has nothing to do with gratification. It is actual work. And this is work that you should be willing to do. And if you're not, then you're not. But that's what I think art is for. I hope it answers your question.